Hi guys, you probably know by now that Cubase 11 is out and it's absolutely fantastic. It's got some fantastic upgrades, loads and loads and loads of updates and upgrades and new plugins and that. These are my 5 favourite things about it. If you want a more detailed review, go to the link in the description and let's get on with it. By the way, the best one is at the end of the video. So we have 6 brand new sample packs and they're all awesome. We have Bloom, which is loads and loads of vocal samples, all different phrases, different tempos, different keys. We have Tech House, loads of bass loops, drum loops, obviously one-shots, all the drums you need, all the kind of effects you need to make a decent tech house track. You've got Hard Knocks, which is hip-hop and R&B and trap. Again, loads of one-shots, loads of loops for drums, bass, effects, chords, guitars, pianos, all that kind of thing. You've got Lo-Fi Dreams, which is more for ambient outside soundscapes. You've got some old school drum loops in there, bass loops, 808 stuff, chords, piano loops, pitched vocals, and loads and loads and loads of one-shots, all in a kind of a lo-fi style, a real retro style. I love that. You've got a synthwave bank, obviously for making synthwave music, everything you need in there for the 80s style music and 80s films and game soundtracks, that kind of thing. And you've got one called Noir, which is really, really great for cinematic or game soundtracks. So let's have a real quick look at some of these now. So we're going to Bloom.
Remember me, are we there yet? What dimension am I in? I'm the love of my life.
Let's go through these really quickly, then I'm going to show you a very, very quick demo track I put together.
You and I, stay with me all night, wanna know you inside, kiss on me now, to let somebody in again.
So that's Bloom. Let's go on to the next one. Let's have a look at Tech House. Loads of bass loops, one shots, clap, crash, effects, loads of drum loops. Drum fills, more one-shots, hi-hats, obviously. Loads and loads of kicks, tech house kicks, really punchy some of those. Percussion loop. All your normal kind of stuff, but some really good synth loops as well. Quick look at Hard Knocks. Really nice stuff in here. Got some West Coast stuff here. R&B. Trap stuff as well. Have a look at Lo-Fi Dreams. Loads of different styles, different tempos. I really like this sample pack actually. Synthwave. Great stuff in here as well. All all your one-shot drums, effects. These lovely 80s toms. Huge snares. And let's just have a quick look at Noir as well, the cinematic one. I've used some of these in the demo track. So I think you get the idea, tons and tons of stuff in there. Let's have a quick look at this demo track I've very, very quickly put together. It's only very short. So I've used some of these cinematic effects here, and we've got the tech house drum loop and a tech house kick. Some vocals coming from Bloom, tech house bass line. Let's just have a quick listen. So that's a combination of the tech house and the Noir cinematic sample banks. So let's move on to the next one. So there's been some upgrades, some really great upgrades to the sampler track. Just going to demonstrate that for you now with some samples from the new lo-fi bank. So as you can see, I've pulled in a synth loop here and a sampler track here for the drum loop. So let's go into the sampler track and have a look at the new improvements. There's quite a few here. So the first thing you'll notice is not only do we have normal mode, and we also have audio warp, which was there before, but we've now got slice mode, and Cubase will automatically slice up your drum loop or whatever it is you've got in here, and you can now play these on the keyboard, each different slice. You can play around with those, and you can obviously adjust the threshold of the slices if it doesn't quite get it how you want it. You know, more or less slices, pretty much how it normally works. And obviously you've got control over how it slices them with the minimum length time, fade in, fade out times on those slices, whether you want it in transient mode or grid mode, for example. And as I said, threshold there. So also once you've got the slices, you can chuck them in to the project if you want. Just quickly get rid of that for a second and drag in from here the slices that I've now got. Now all the slices are mapped on my piano roll. So obviously I'm now free to reprogram this drum loop exactly how I want, just by shifting, moving around, you know, these MIDI segments. So that's a nice feature. So moving over to the pitch module, we now have an octave control now. Obviously that's useful on other things, probably not drums. You've got fine control and semitone control as well. And you've got glide as well now. But more importantly, we've got these LFOs. This is probably the biggest update to this sample track, is you now have LFOs. So we can, if you want, click the mod button here and you get not only access to the envelopes, but on the right hand side you have the LFOs, and you have two. You have LFO1, LFO2, and you can assign them here with these LFO controls here. So for example, you could assign LFO1 to the pitch because it's on the pitch module, and then just turn up the amount. Turn up the frequency. And it's not going to work very well pitching drums. So let's just quickly move on to the filter. Turn that on. Let's just turn up LFO1 a little bit. And you'll hear it start modulating the cutoff. You get real-time feedback on the waveform as well, with the cutoff there. Got drive, resonance, so over with the LFO here, you can change it to sync to tempo and beat, or tempo and re-trigger, and now you've got quarter notes, or whatever, you know, eighth note, triplet notes, whatever. If you have that off, then obviously you're free to choose this according to the frequency you want. You've got different shapes. You can change this to a triangle wave, all the normal stuff, saw wave. And you can change the shape. Press this button here, you can have your mod wheel take over. And you can have random phase or choose a phase. And the amount of effect is here, this percentage dial here. So moving on to the amp section, we could obviously assign volume or pan as well. So let's say we go on to LFO2 and let's have a pulse wave. And let's have this panning from left to right, something like that. So we'll turn up LFO2 now on panning. Let's change this to tempo. Quarter notes. Obviously you can hear that panning now. And we can do volume as well if we want. So tons and tons of useful stuff there. That could be really groovy. That could really transform your drum loop or bass loop, whatever it is, into something really cool, especially like the cutoff filtering up and down. I really like that. But we're just touching the surface here. Obviously there's tons of things you can do. So there's quite a few more minor updates to this as well. Those were the major updates. You've got a normalize function over here. You can now normalize the sample and choose the settings for that. You've got key follow added on the filter. So you could set that up so the higher you play on the keyboard, the more or less cutoff frequency you get. You've got a trim sample function, so you just highlight it and then just trim it. And undo function. Once you've got a region, you can now move that around. Before you had to move the start point and the end point separately, but now you can just move it around if you wish. You've got playback quality now, you've got vintage and extreme, that kind of thing. So live updates in the waveform in the window. Over here you've got export to new instrument, which could be Backbone or Pad Shop or Halion or Groove Agent. So you can easily get your brand new affected sample into another instrument if you wish. And yeah, some really, really great stuff there in the new Cubase 11. So the next thing I want to talk about is this Squasher plugin, which is a multi-band effect plugin. For anyone that's got the Waves MV2, it's very similar to that. So what is it exactly? It's a multi-band compressor effect with both downward and upward compression at the same time. And it's got a saturation knob as well and a gate as well, all on each band. So basically you can get some really, really great coloration and pumping effects, and you can really dirty up a drum loop or a vocal or bass line or whatever it is you want to use it on. So before we go into this plugin, just in case you're not sure what an upward compressor is, let's just have a quick look at a standard compressor. Now, standard compressors are downward compression. So basically every time the signal goes over the threshold here, I'm sure you know this by now, the signal gets reduced. Therefore, it is downward compression. Now, Squasher comes with a downward compressor, as you can see here, but it also comes with an upwards compressor as well. So it's reducing the top part of the signal over the threshold and increasing the bottom of the signal, again, once you hit the threshold. So instead of being reduced once it goes over the threshold here, it also gets increased once it falls below the threshold. And to get it onto this mode, you just press this button here because it comes onto default with this mode here. Quickly set up a loop here. So we've got this on the drums, and we're just using one of the presets here for quickness, Slam Dunk Drums 3, although I'll just quickly change that. Just changes the sound quite a bit. Okay, I think we'll use this one for the demo, and I'll just explain what's going on here. So yeah, the best mode for me is to put it on this bottom one where you can actually see the familiar compressor graph. First of all, you've got a mix knob here of the whole plugin, so you don't have to use 100% mix of the plugin. You can have it on whatever you want. You've got 3 bands, obviously, but you can make this lower, 2 bands or 1 band. You've got a maximum of 3 bands. You've got your ratios here. So your traditional ratios are here. This is what you're familiar with, is the right-hand side one, the downward compressor. That's probably more familiar to you. And you've also got your upward ratio here. So you're now affecting the bottom half of the signal as well. And basically what you're doing, you're getting even more of a squashing effect and therefore even less dynamic range than a standard compressor. Your thresholds are just below, so as you'd expect, the downward threshold is here, just the same as on a standard compressor. Your threshold is here, and your ratio is here, how much it compresses by. That's the same here, but you've also got this extra feature where you can do upward compression as well. So this is your upward threshold setting and ratio. So if you really wanted to squish it, this is just the mid band, of course. You could do something like that. You could really squish the hell out of it so it's just in that middle band there. That's probably quite extreme. Of course, it depends on what effect you're going for. You've got your normal attack and release times here. You've also got a drive, a saturation drive, which can add a bit of grit into that band or into this band or whatever it is. You've also got a gate control as well. We'll do a couple of examples in a sec. You've got a mix control for each band, which is fantastic. Mix that to suit. Output for each band as well. And you've got your side chains down the bottom here, which is opened by this little arrow here. You can use an external side chain up to 3. So you could have a different external side chain for each band. That's why you've got 3 side chains. Or you can use internal sidechain, so it takes the signal as it already is coming into this plugin. But why would you do that? Well, you can just set the frequency and the Q so it only listens to a very small part of that signal, which then triggers the compressor. You can set the frequency here and the Q here, and you can also listen to that filter here if you wish. You can also send this to the squasher which is the compressor, or the gate. You can send it to the gate if you wish. So let's have a quick look at some examples. I had that on the drum loop, which I've already shown you. It sort of crunched up those drums quite a bit, gave those drums a real different sound. So this vocal is obviously quite dynamic because it's completely dry. It's obviously got very loud bits and very quiet words. So let's just have a listen to that without anything at all, no compressors at all. This is completely raw.
Everybody's here to find the love. Everybody's talking and having a good time.
So quite a difference in words volume-wise. Let's stick on the standard compressor, just with nearly 4:1 and threshold of -20. This will even it out a nice amount.
Everybody's here to find the love.
Much smoother, much more level.
Everybody's talking and having a good time tonight.
And let's just try the squasher. So a similar downward settings here, but we've got upward settings as well. So we're squashing the bottom of the signal as well as the top.
Everybody's here to find the love.
We've got a bit of drive on here as well, just to give it some character.
Everybody's talking and having a good time tonight.
It's got a nice bit of crunch to it. Really like that. That would save me perhaps putting on 2 compressors, the second one being a tube compressor, where I might add a bit of coloration with the character knob or the drive knob on the tube compressor. So that just saves me having to do that, I guess. Just be careful though, the upward compressor is going to bring up all the noise floor. So this section in the middle here can sound really quite noisy. So obviously we just gate that off or just delete that section or whatever. And here's the visual representation. This is with the standard compressor. You can see obviously the compressor's done the standard compressor's done a really good job compared to the unprocessed version. Flattened it out, and then the squasher, depending on what settings you use, of course, has done an even better job in terms of flattening out the dynamics. Anyway, you can see that there's even more sort of compression going on there, both upward and downward. So guys, if you appreciate the video and you want to help out the channel, hit the thumbs up button please, and the subscribe button so you get notified about more videos just like this. Thanks very much. My fourth favourite thing is a very, very simple thing. Quite a minor thing really. It's upgrades to the MIDI editor in general. There's absolutely loads of upgrades to the MIDI editor, so watch the other video for that, the more detailed review of Cubase 11. But what I like about this, just turn this off for a second, is the pitch bend, or the MIDI editor down here. It's now super smooth. So this is just a riser effect, which I programmed in for Retrolog. So before that was all janky and it was always in steps. You couldn't get this really smooth curve. So obviously you would just draw it in. Let's just get rid of that and draw that in again. And you'd normally get this kind of effect before. You'd get all these steps and it would sound really janky. I'll just undo that. And now, when obviously you use that middle point, you can now make this as smooth as you like and have it exactly how you want. That's only a very minor upgrade, but for me that's quite a big thing, so that's why it's in my top 5 favourite things. And you just come to the settings, you can show your semitones grid as well, and you can adjust the pitch range. So I've made mine 2 octaves. You have to go into Retrolog as well, or whatever instrument you're doing. Just make sure that this has been set to +24 as well, otherwise it's only going to go what's set here. So this is +2 semitones, I think, the standard, and -2. But you have to do that as well. But yeah, you've got a grid on here as well, so you know exactly what you're doing. But like I say, there's loads and loads of really good MIDI editor functions now, or upgrades, so that's in the other video. So moving on to the last one, and I've saved the best till last, in my own humble opinion, of course, and that is Dynamic EQ, which is now built into the frequency plugin. So dynamic EQ has been around for quite a while now. You've got the Waves F6 and you've got the really nice plugins from FabFilter, of course. But we now have it built into Frequency in Cubase. So with this upgrade, there's less and less reason to buy these third-party plugins, in my own opinion. So let's have a look at what it is, and then we'll have a look at how it works. So on the bass line, I've got Frequency here. So just to be absolutely clear, static EQ, obviously you make your change and that's it. It's static for the whole of your track, unless you automate it, of course. Obviously you can automate this on or off, or you can change it, whatever. But most people, you dial in your EQ to make the vocals brighter, or to tame down the piano, or whatever it is, and it's stuck there for the whole track. Dynamic EQ adjusts up and down. It can go downwards or upwards, and it adjusts to the incoming frequency or signal, and depending on all your settings. And the benefit of that is it's only taming those frequencies when it needs to. It's not taming them for the whole track, and therefore possibly making a detrimental effect on the whole track. So in summary, dynamic EQ reduces or increases the gain of the desired frequency range that you set when the level goes above or below the threshold that you set as well. So it has a built-in compressor for each band. So in this case, we have 8 bands on frequency, and we have a built-in compressor for each channel. I'll show you that in a second. So you might be thinking, well, what's the difference between that and a multi-band compressor? Well, there's a couple of main reasons that I can think of. First of all, in a traditional multi-band compressor, let's just take the Cubase one as an example. You've only got 4 bands. In frequency, you have 8. And these are only very kind of wide bands, if you like. I know you can adjust them, of course you can, but they're separated by low pass and high pass filters. You can't really get that specific. So the narrowest band you've got is between 5 and 6.3. So you've got a 1.3 kilohertz. That's as sort of narrow as you can go. And so this would bring me on to the de-esser as well. On the de-esser, which you can use dynamic EQ for as well. Again, you can't really get that narrow on the de-esser. In fact, you've got nearly 5K's worth of band there. And also on a standard multi-band compressor, it is just compressing downwards. So they're the two differences. So obviously you could be just going back to the narrow bandwidth I brought up a second ago. You could have this really, really narrow and really, really fine, whereas on a multi-band compressor you can't. Plus you've got 8 bands, not 4. So that's enough talking. Let's get into when you might use a dynamic EQ. So on this particular example, let's do the kick and the bass, and I've sidechained. If you just double click here in the section just above next to the number, you come to the extra controls, and now you can see we've got the dynamic section here. So this is your compressor built into the EQ, if you like. Set your threshold as you would normally. Set your ratio, set your attack, set your release as you would normally. You've also got a starting point volume-wise, so you could start it up there, or you could start it lower. We'll just have this as normal. And the sidechain's over on the right-hand side. Again, you've got internal sidechain, but you've also got up to 8 sidechain inputs. So that's something else that's been added, is multi-input sidechain. That's so you could possibly, or potentially, if you wanted to, have a different trigger for each band. And again, you can set up the sidechain frequencies if you wish, like you can on the squasher, and listen to that trigger frequency as well. So I've just got sidechain 1. Obviously, it's just the kick. And obviously we're just dipping the bass at this frequency when the kick plays. So you can see we're dipping the kick at 56 Hertz, and therefore we're not affecting the rest of the bass line. If you put a normal compressor on this and sidechain it, it's going to dip the whole bass line, which you may want. But if you want to be more specific and only take out this band here, then you can do that. And again, a multi-band compressor can do the same thing, but it's just not so accurate. So you could also use the similar thing for de-essing. You would set up something up here, obviously round about the 5 to 12K, depending on where your de-essing is. You could have a real fine Q and obviously set up your sidechain so it just looks for the sibilants, the S's and the F's. And that would work better than the standard de-esser, in my opinion. So when else would you possibly use a dynamic EQ? You may have a guitar track where the low mids are, lacking, so therefore you do an upward compressor, let's say, something like that. And you may want to tame the upper mids of the guitar track, but only at certain frequencies, and obviously you set the threshold accordingly. So it would tame the upper mids when needed, and it would boost the lower mids when needed as well, depending on how they're playing, because obviously at certain parts of the track, they might be playing the guitar more loudly or in a slightly different style. Therefore, that's why it beats the pants off static EQ, because it can adapt to the style of the performance at that particular moment. Okay, here's another example of when you might use dynamic EQ, and this is a really, really good one. Just going to play you a track from our pop singer-songwriter course coming out very, very soon. And you'll hear that the vocal is fighting a little bit with the guitar group. Just play that for you.
Oh, crazy nights. Are there last nights? Oh, crazy nights.
So it's fighting with the guitars because there's a lot of guitar frequency there that clashes with the vocals. And I'm now going to put the frequency compression on. I've got compression on channel 5 here, or band 5, and I'm making this quite obvious. So this is on the guitar group, so it's going to dip and it's side chained to the vocals. So every time the vocal is present, it dips this section of frequencies out of the guitars to carve a gap for the vocal to come through. So this should be a lot easier. I've got it at extreme, wouldn't have it this extreme, just literally just for the demonstration.
Oh, crazy nights. Are there last nights? Oh, crazy nights. Are there last nights?
So you should be able to hear the guitars sort of dimming in frequency, if you like, to let through the band of vocals. So without.
Oh, crazy nights. Are there last nights?
And with.
Oh, crazy nights. Are there last nights?
So that's really letting the vocals through there. It's much, much clearer, and you can hear the compressor letting go of the frequency range as soon as the vocal stops.
Oh, crazy nights.
So that's a bit extreme. I would obviously just back this off quite a bit. But we can go one step further than this. This is on the stereo field. So we could change this to mid sides and go mid only. So therefore what we're doing, we're only carving out this frequency band in the middle of the stereo field. We're leaving the sides as they are.
Crazy nights.
So we're not affecting the guitar frequencies on the sides. So that's a really, really good use for this dynamic EQ, now available in Frequency plugin. So those were my 5 favourite things about the new Cubase 11. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What are your favourite things? Are you going to be upgrading? Let us know. We'll have a discussion down below. Don't forget to check out our brand new Cubase 11 Ultimate Beginners course for beginners and intermediates, where we make a full professional track from absolutely nothing right through to the final mixdown and master. Check that out in the description as well. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. All the best. Bye bye.